Now, progressive and anti-war activists are speaking out after President Trump granted a pardon to an American soldier convicted of murdering an Iraqi prisoner back in 2008. Now, this is Lieutenant Michael Bahena, and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison back in 2009 for the murder of Ali Mansour. Now, it's important to note that he is actually out of prison. He's been on parole since 2014. Nonetheless, he got a complete and full presidential pardon for that murder. So now, according to the New York Times, who reported on this, Bahena and his unit had believed that Mansour was the architect of an attack that killed 2 people in his unit. Now, he did not have any evidence of that Mansour was involved, but hey, he was Muslim, and so he had to have been guilty of something, right? They found him, by the way, and then disobeyed direct orders by taking him to a remote part of the Iraqi desert where he was interrogated, tortured, and then shot and killed. So now, the extent of what Bahena had been convicted of doing, is laid out by Qasim Rashid, who said Bahena was ordered to release an innocent Iraqi man that they had no evidence to hold. So they went and they got him and they held him against orders of the superiors. And Bahena instead dragged him under a bridge, stripped him naked, tortured him, and then when that was over, shot him, killed him, and then burned the body by setting a grenade off under his corpse. And of course, Donald Trump had just given him a presidential pardon. This is a guy, remember, who, when the Central Park Five was pardoned, right, found to have not done the crime, Donald Trump said, I don't care, they're guilty anyway, keep them in prison. Execute them. He once ran a full-page ad saying we should execute the Central Park Five. And yet, he gives a pardon to somebody who murdered somebody who they had no proof had committed a crime because they were Muslim. No, they must be guilty of something, right? Now, what happened to Mansour is brutal in every sense of the word. That's literally what ISIS would do to people. They didn't know he was the architect of the attack. And even if he was, we have laws on how to deal with people who, had committed terrorism. I mean, we don't or we shouldn't condone murder or torture, but unfortunately in this country, which is run by a neo-fascist, basically, or a wannabe fascist, apparently we do. I mean, look at the CIA director, Gina Haspel. Gina Haspel ran some of the black sites in Iraq that tortured people. Now, this pardon, according to Hina Shamsi, director of the ECO's National Security Project, said this, quote, the pardon is a presidential endorsement of a murder that violated the military's own code of justice. Now, again, this was the military saying, no, you violated direct orders and you killed someone without evidence because you believed or you thought that he was guilty of an attack. Now, she continued, she says, the military appeals court found Bahena disobeyed orders, became the aggressor against his prisoner, and had no justification for killing a naked, unarmed Iraqi man in the desert. Now, but it gets worse, right? So now look, I could have a little bit of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, for somebody who lost his friends to a terrorist attack, to an IED, right? And in his grief, maybe made terrible decisions and has regret, right? Except that in this case, it's different. Bahena had no regrets. In court filings reviewed by the New York Times, Bahena allegedly said that he would do it again and would not feel bad about it because, hey man, well, I lost 2 of my own and I don't care. I don't care if he maybe didn't do it. I think he did, but maybe he didn't. I don't care. He's Muslim. He's a brown guy. So he must be a terrorist. Now, again, he killed somebody who was at that point innocent. Didn't prove that he had done anything wrong. And you know what's funny is that they also don't get it. Ironically, the right-wingers who pushed for the release of this guy, right? This is how you get more terrorism. And they don't get it. They don't get it. The right wing championed Behenna's pardon. In fact, here's another Afghanistan veteran named Nate Bethia who pointed this out on Twitter. He said, quote, if I recall correctly, Behenna murdered the detainee because despite having zero evidence, he was convinced the guy had detonated an IED that killed soldiers in his platoon. So basically, he murdered someone because he felt like it, and Trump pardoned him to sate his base of nihilist racists. Yeah. He also said all Republicans agree with this because all Republicans think that no American soldier should go to jail for murdering someone overseas. They don't think it counts as murder. And that's about the most damning part of this, right? And let me add on to that. They don't think that some of these people overseas are actually human beings at all. And don't forget, we were the aggressors in Afghanistan and Iraq. We invaded Afghanistan, by the way, originally to look for bin Laden because of 9/11, right? And then somehow, looking for bin Laden turned into regime change, which, by the way, failed miserably. Afghanistan is complete 100% failure. It cost the lives of Americans and innocent Afghans. And by the way, we did not win that conflict. The Taliban is now getting back into power. They've actually made a comeback. And guess what? Now we're actually discussing peace with the Taliban. So what was literally the point? What's the point? Bin Laden, by the way, ended up in Pakistan of all places. Why did we have to launch a regime change war when there was one special ops team that was enough to take down bin Laden? Why? Well, the whole reason, of course, is to feed the war machine, which, by the way, ends up chewing up people, both, like Behenna and Ali Mansour. It chews them up and it spits them out, and it creates more terrorism. This kind of thing wouldn't happen if we didn't champion constant warfare. And part of war means dehumanizing the other. And we have done that very, very well here in America when it comes to Muslims. That's why the right wing has no problems with killing people who could be innocent. Because to them, well, you're a Muslim. There's no way you're innocent. And then they wonder, why do they hate us? Or they say they hate us because they hate us. They're not human to them. It doesn't matter. He's a Muslim. He's a terrorist anyway. Let's just murder him and get him out of the way. They're not human. They're not human. And that's why Sean King said this in a tweet. This pardon from Trump is just another part of his white supremacy tour. It's his way of saying that when a white man kills a Muslim, even if he disobeys orders and is convicted of murder, that the Muslim somehow deserves it and that the white man deserves a break/sympathy. It's not a stretch to see that, by the way, from somebody who saw good people on both sides of Charlottesville, who campaigned on and attempted to ban Muslims from the country, who in his first campaign speech called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He agrees with white supremacy. Look, the only Muslims that Trump likes are rich Saudis who end up buying stuff from him. That's all. Everyone else is a dangerous terrorist. But there's one more thing that's important here that I want to mention, and that's the Atlantic's that comes from the Atlantic's Adam Serwer. Now, he said that the pardon could have unintended consequences for our soldiers in the field. He said that by eroding the rules of engagement and endorsing the murder of prisoners, Trump could be putting U.S. service members in danger. Why? It's because, well, what happens when you have an American soldier that's captured? They're going to look at what we did and say, well, here we go. We're just going to do the same thing to them that they did to us. Not only that, but again, the whole thing is that this will end up creating more terrorism by turning America into the things that they say that we are: murderers, killers, invaders, infidels. This helps terrorists recruit more people. But again, the right wing doesn't get it, whether they get it because they don't want to get it or they're just that ignorant. But here, I want to go to one more quote here from Sewer. Serwer says, the point of this, though, like the Arpaio pardon, is to send a message that certain groups of people simply have no rights, that the U.S. government is bound to respect. And look, that's why anti-Muslim right-wingers will continue to defend this war criminal and others like him. Because to them, there is no worse crime than being a Muslim. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.